What is going on, everybody? This is Maximilian, and it is cold outside. For the first time in Lord knows how long, I have felt what could possibly be freezing temperatures. Being in Hong Kong for the entire winter didn't really help, although it was still pretty cold there, mind you. I did have to go and buy a winter quilt, and I did use that thing until well into April. So it wasn't exactly like it was tropic the entire time I was there, but at the same time, I don't think I've seen snow in probably, oh gosh, 10 months. Maybe even longer than that. And if any of you guys have ever tried to wake up on a morning when it's 30-something degrees outside, the wind is gusting, and it's just warm enough to where it's not spitting snow anymore, but freezing rain. You know what I'm talking about. It's just misery. You feel like there's absolutely no point to life anymore, and you don't want to get out of bed. Yeah, that's how I felt this morning. Unfortunately, macroeconomics is kind of one of my weaker points right now, so I really needed to go to class, and there was no way around it. I just had to go. I blew off physics for the second time this week, which was also a really bad idea. Even though I'm doing well in the class, I still have another hour exam to go, and I need to do well in that exam in order to officially secure my grade in the class. So yeah, the cold weather is just not helping right now. And if any of you people are in college right now, you can probably understand what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if I have any subscribers that are in the southern hemisphere, but up here in the northern hemisphere, it's getting chilly. It's November, and I have to admit we've kind of been stretching our warm weather streak a little bit longer than it probably should have been. Because last weekend was actually quite nice. It was probably in the 60s or 70s last weekend. And it's November, for crying out loud. But I guess the weather's finally caught up with the season, and now it's starting to get miserable again. I live in that awkward part of the United States where you can never really predict what kind of weather's coming at you. We have everything from tornadoes to earthquakes to excessive heat waves to temperatures that are below zero. Like, you name it. It's a crapshoot. It's kind of amazing our meteorologists even still have jobs at the rate of the weather that we get here. It just changes constantly. You never know what's coming. Like our summers, last summer was absolutely brutal. We probably had a stretch of, I want to say, 20 days where the heat index was over 100 degrees. And for those of you who don't know what a heat index is, maybe you're from the UK or something and it doesn't get too hot there. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it gets fairly hot there. But basically, we live right in the middle of the United States. So we get a lot of warm, moist air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, especially during the summer. And then in the winter, we get a lot of cold, dry air coming in from Canada. Well, during the summer, it's hot enough as is. I mean, it's like 90, 95 degrees. Because we may be a bit above the equator, but we're still, within reasonable distance of it. We get a lot of heat. And the warm, humid air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico just exaggerates this effect even more. So by the time you walk outside, it feels like you're standing in 105-degree weather, and then you start sweating for no apparent reason other than the fact that it's hot outside. So that's the kind of miserable summer weather we have. And then in the winter, it gets even worse. Because it's not like, one of those winter wonderland type scenarios where you envision like a foot of snow everywhere. There's people outside and their hats and their scarves and their gloves and mittens and all that. Like, it's horrible weather. Because we get that awkward middle ground where it's not quite cold enough for the snow to accumulate, but it's also really not warm enough for it to be like actual rain either. So it gets to be like 35 degrees Fahrenheit or like 1 to 2 degrees centigrade, and it just spits freezing rain all day long. The wind gusts constantly, so the wind chill's somewhere in the 20s. It feels like it should be snowing, but it definitely isn't. And then you're walking through miserable weather, your hands are freezing, your body just feels like it's slowly turning to ice, and you wonder when it will end, and it never actually does. Or at the very least, you hope for like a snowfall or something, because anything is better than freezing rain and gusting wind. Like, literally anything is. It is the most miserable weather you can possibly conceive of. Like, I find even like 30-degree below zero wind chills in Wisconsin much more enjoyable than freezing rain in Missouri. And that's saying something, because even in that weather, it's like difficult to breathe. It's so cold outside. But this is just like, it's psychologically damaging, the weather that we have here. Because there's something about freezing rain. There's something about just rain in general where you get cold, windy days. You don't feel like the day is worth living. At least that's how I view it. I hate rainy weather out here especially. And today was like the first time in forever where we actually had crappy weather, like truly crappy weather. So I was like, oh man, this day sucks. Well, fortunately I had the weekend to look forward to. Thank God it's a Thursday. If it were like a Monday and this kind of weather happened, I don't know what I'd be doing with myself. Don't, you perverts, get your mind out of the gutter. Alright, but anyway, I was really bored in this macro econ class that I went to, so I figured, you know what? You guys haven't had a Pokemon video in forever. So I figured, let's fight Misty! So I tried to kind of subliminally absorb the message of Federal Reserve Market, or whatever he was talking about this lecture. I have no clue. Like, honestly, it went in one ear and out the other because I was just so focused on fighting Misty and getting out of the class as fast as humanly possible. Because honestly, the only reason I showed up is because at some point he's going to hand us a take-home exam, and that would be really awkward to have skipped that day when, you know, he hands out the exam. And also he's like, alright everyone, turn in your exams, and you just collectively, with the rest of your friends who weren't there, shat yourselves. Yeah, that's exactly what I didn't want to have happen. So I went there. He didn't hand out the exam, so I was like, okay, well, I brought my computer with me at the very least. I should be good to go for an hour. And you will find college classes like this. It's not like this is strictly unique to my macroeconomics experience. There will always be college classes, especially in your first semesters, because that's when you get your easy electives out of the way, your gen ed classes, where the only thing that's going to get you through that class is either a smartphone or a laptop and some kind of connection to the internet. Because, honestly, the lecturer is absolutely of no intellectual value to you. It's not like they teach you anything anyway. Either that, or they teach you things that they know personally, and it's not from the book that they're testing you on. Or you just can't understand them because they have such a horrible accent. It actually happens quite a lot in my case because I go to a science and technology school, which means we have a lot of foreign professors. And for some classes, I think best example was my stat class last year. I had a Chinese teacher. Now, I had been in Hong Kong for the past 6 months, so I kind of gotten used to it, but this is pre-Hong Kong experience. So, on top of the fact that she wasn't a very good teacher, I couldn't understand a word she was saying. So, basically, I ended up skipping literally every class that wasn't a quiz or exam date, and I just taught myself statistics. Sometimes you will have to deal with that. Like, that class was stupendously easy. It was like a walk back in time to high school. So, it's not like it was requiring some exuberant amount of effort. But you will run into classes where you either just have to teach yourself, and yeah, that's basically the only way you're ever going to pass it or get an A in it or whatever your goal is. So I would definitely recommend that you carry a laptop with you at all times in college. Not necessarily to take notes, because I find it's actually really terrible for taking notes. You retain a lot more of your information when you write it down by hand, even though that may be, you know, Stone Age technique or whatever, you know, get with the future kind of thing. Just don't take notes on a laptop. It never works, and you just end up getting distracted anyway. Keep it for those classes that just, you know, you're not going to learn anything in. And you'd much rather just survive and not fall asleep and then get embarrassed from her asking you a question, waking you up. I mean, I guess they could ask you a question when you're on Facebook or something, but, I mean, at least you're not asleep when you do it, so when you wake up, you don't immediately go into cardiac arrest. If you ever had that feeling when a teacher, like, suddenly asks you, like, calls out your name, or you think you hear your name is called, and you were, I guess, kind of dozing off in class, either because you were tired or you didn't really care. And that's the worst feeling ever. You just feel your heart literally jump out of your chest, and you feel like you're going to die of a heart attack. Yeah, worst feeling ever. So, probably not the greatest college advice I could possibly give you guys. I mean, in theory, I should be telling you to pay attention in class and take very thorough notes to every class you go to and study very hard, but this is the reality of the situation. You know, the things that your professors aren't going to tell you. Number one, you're going to have some crappy professors. It just happens. They are impossible to avoid. I don't know of anybody who's ever gotten through college and not gotten at least one bad professor or one class which they just could not care less about. So always carry a laptop or smartphone with you in the event that you need to resort to drastic measures. And secondly, if you have to teach yourself, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It happens. Find someone else who was in the class, and maybe they can help you out with your homework. But yeah, that's my college advice for the day. You guys got another Pokemon video. Woohoo! See you guys later.